Mayor London Breed, and I just want to thank you all for joining us here today. I am really excited about this small business forum that is so desperately needed for so many businesses in our city. This pandemic has had not only a tremendous impact on our overall city and our public health, but it's also had a tremendous impact on our financial health, and especially many of our businesses in the city. The people who own these businesses, the workforce of these businesses, it all will be very difficult as as the months to come, when we began to look at ways in which we can open and provide new guidelines around opening businesses. We know that financially, so many of our businesses are hurting now, need support now, and also will need support in the future. Some of the programs that we put forth here in the city immediately almost was to defer the payment of business taxes until next year. We actually extended the deadline for fees as well. We provided resources for paid sick leave so that businesses can extend paid sick leave payments to their employees. We provided grants and loan opportunities with no interest and flexible repayment schedules. We have also provided arts grants to so many of our artists who rely on performances and other events in order to take care of themselves. As someone who not only loves San Francisco, but as someone who uses so many of our small businesses, whether it's the dry cleaner that I've been going to since since I could afford a dry cleaner, or it's the person who does my hair, my nails, or the musicians that played at Sheba's Lounge, or the restaurants that I love to go to all over the city. All of these very unique businesses are what matters to the people of this city. They are a part of the fabric of our city. And I want to make sure that as we propose more funding and more support on the local level, that we are connecting to the people who need these resources the most. And we are also making sure that federal and state resources are reaching all of you. So today we are here with the director of the Department of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, Joaquín Torres. If you want more information or you want to look up some of the services we have, please visit the website oewd.org. And so Joaquín runs that department, and he knows even before this pandemic, I have been really laser focused on trying to eliminate fees that make it difficult for small businesses in particular to be in business in San Francisco in the first place. And so even though this pandemic is challenging, I am so hopeful that it will be an opportunity to provide some much needed long-term relief for our businesses in San Francisco, and Joaquín will be leading those efforts. We also have the president of the Small Business Commission, Cynthia Huie, who will be moderating this discussion. And we also have the director of the Chamber of Commerce here as well, native San Franciscan Rodney Fong, who has been a business person pretty much his whole life. The Wax Museum, I don't know about you, but I went to Galileo High School and we used to sneak into the Wax Museum when I was a kid. So I owe you some ticket money, Rodney. But the fact is, between the Wax Museum, the restaurants, the hair and the nail salons, the barber shops, the masseuse locations, all of these great things are really what makes San Francisco so special. And we know that the sad reality is that because of the pandemic and because of the requirement around social distancing, it's not as simple as those institutions and those businesses can actually go back to work, number one. And number two, when you go back to work, the likelihood that you're going to be able to make sufficient revenues to cover the expenses that you haven't been able to cover for months is going to be challenging. So this is our opportunity to hear from businesses to make sure that not only are we putting forth good options to support you, but they are effectively working to serve your businesses, and that we are doing everything we can to come up with the kinds of things that are going to help you in the long run. So with that, I want to turn it over to our Director of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development for a few words. And then Rodney Fong will say a few words, and then we'll get to Cynthia and she'll moderate this discussion. So thank you all so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Mayor Breed, and thank you again for your leadership and the pressure that you place on our office to make sure that we're reaching the needs of our small business communities across the city and in our neighborhoods. And thank you again for the idea of bringing us all together through this town hall so we can have an opportunity to hear from each other and our answers about some of the most pressing questions facing small businesses right now, and the relief that you have been driving us to deliver for our small business communities, whether we talked about grants or loan products or deferral of fees. It's all grounded in wanting to see our small businesses be successful here, not only with what the city can provide, but also complementing the wraparound efforts of both the state and federal resources that are essential to both our relief and our recovery efforts. Just a few things before we jump in. We know generally, based on some conversations that we've had, that we've seen a 70% decrease citywide. We know that certain areas and industries are hit even harder in terms of the sales that are out there. We know that we're already seeing 14,000 businesses being affected, 166,000 employees at this moment in time. We're expecting larger hits as time goes on, in addition to over 70,000 people that have already applied for unemployment in San Francisco alone. We know that we are dealing with unprecedented challenges here in San Francisco, but we, through our Office of Economic and Workforce Development, Mayor Breed, we are standing ready to support the small business community at this time, and especially with the partners that we have joining us today and in our communities, both in the past, but also in the present, and we're very much looking forward to the future. So looking forward to answering some questions here today. Now I'll pass it over to President of the Chamber of Commerce, Rodney Fong.
Great, thank you, Joaquín. First of all, I want to say hello to everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. We're in this together. We're all feeling the same things. We're all feeling the same frustration, level of fear going on, but hopefully we'll get through this together and support our way through a great recovery. I want to thank Mayor Breed and all that her office has been doing, and Joaquín's been working like a workhorse over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It seems like months, I'm sure, but he and his staff have been doing a great job. I'll point out the staff of the Chamber of Commerce, while tiny and mighty, have been working extremely hard. So over just a little bit of recap, over the last few weeks, the city and the mayor have deferred some of the business registration fees, and they deferred them until September. That adds up to about $49 million in cash flow to the city of San Francisco. Several fees that apply to storefront businesses have also been deferred until September, helping preserve another $14 million in cash flow. I want to be very clear, and the mayor is clear about this. We are going to be looking at a significant deficit in the city of San Francisco, the Bay Area, the state of California. And so we're talking about $1 million up from the city that we won't have in revenue. We will have to all pitch in. We will all have to figure out how we save and build back San Francisco in an even better way. So if we want to start talking about recovery tomorrow, we got to start planning it today. And I'm delighted to tell you that the recovery task force kicked off last Friday. It's about an 80-person task force led by myself, Carmen Chu, Jose Cisneros, and Rudy Gonzalez representing labor. We have a vast variety of representation throughout the city. 80 seems like a lot of people, but when you look at all the different sectors and industries and nonprofits and healthcare in the city, it's actually a good representation of a lot of people who have shared interests. And again, we're all going to have to work together. There's not just one industry here in San Francisco that's better than another. Want to also mention that we're going to have to rely on our public health department to lay out new guidelines. We are essentially reinventing ourselves in a great way, bringing in technology that might be able to help us in a better way and create a better San Francisco. I want to touch on 3 points, though, if I can, pretty briefly. And this is one where probably from a commerce perspective, it doesn't seem logical. But from our perspective, the importance of the public school system and the private school system implementing guidelines to get kids safely and teachers back into school has a direct correlation to the workforce in San Francisco and the Bay Area. Not until those schools feel safe and mom and dad feel safe leaving kids at home and not doing online school or homeschooling, that we get a full workforce. It's important because a busy downtown San Francisco supports so many businesses, as you know. All those sandwiches get bought and soups get picked up at lunch, and that's important that we have a busy, vibrant San Francisco and a downtown. So we want to be supportive of our school systems and getting them back open. The second main point I want to make is small businesses will need to pivot. We're going to have to reinvent ourselves. We're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to be entrepreneurial problem solvers that we naturally are. And this is no test greater than this one to figure out how it's going to be different. Restaurants are going to maybe have to change their seating arrangements, going down to not a full house. Here in San Francisco and Los Angeles, it's very difficult to make money without a full seated restaurant. And we're going to have to figure that out. That means takeout. That means maybe retail inside of a restaurant. That means maybe other clothing that is produced by someone related to the restaurant, and you're creating a lifestyle. All of these pivots are going to require us, the city, government, and private sector, to be flexible with our permitting process, to look at permit streamlining, to be flexible with allowing change of use permits to occur. Maybe temporarily, just as we get back up and we can tighten them back up, but we're going to need to be all in this together and be flexible, and that takes everybody. The third thing I want to mention is public health, and the mayor's done such a great job listening to public health and making decisions based on public health. And as I mentioned, because of that flexibility, we're going to rely on government and our public health departments to tell us what is best practice. I will say, and I hope that those departments listen to small business, and small business actually steps up and says, you know what, no one knows how to run this nightclub better than we do. And here are some suggestions which we think we can voluntarily put down, something that we can live with financially, operationally. You look at these changes and the way they're going to occur, they're very much operational. There's one piece that has been floated around, and that's an idea of a certificate of healthy places, a voluntary standardization, much like a food handler has to take a certification to become a well-informed, safe food handler. And so maybe we need that for brick and mortar stores. That's all I really wanted to share with you right now, but I just, again, wanted to stress that creativity and ingenuity will get us largely out of this. Competition will also get us largely out of this. What will set one business apart from another is how safe and clean it is. And if we can do that independently and collectively, San Francisco can be a better city. So I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Rodney. And so now Commissioner Huie, if you want to give some remarks, and we can go right into the question and answer.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for logging in today. My name is Cynthia Huie, and I'm a small business owner in the city, and most recently now as a commissioner on the Small Business Commission. I just really want to express how grateful I am to be a San Franciscan right now. I was just outside on Saturday singing with my neighbors, and it was an amazing feeling. So I'm incredibly appreciative of how everyone in our communities has come together to fight for and support the health of all San Franciscans. Just a quick story I wanted to share was that I was recently in a West Portal merchants meeting with many small business representatives, merchants, and Mayor Breed as well. I don't know if you probably had no idea I was there, but I was watching you during the meeting, and I could see you in your little Zoom box typing away, and I was just floored that this is our mayor. This was our mayor. Like, you were in the chat just trying to answer everybody's questions and connecting people. And I was so proud of the fact that I lived in the city where our mayor just digs in and is doing the work. And so I just wanted to say from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much for trying to help us all through this. It's an incredibly challenging situation time. I can't even imagine, but I know we're gonna all get through this, and I believe in your leadership, and I really thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, well, I think also all of us have all the programs and things memorized by now, all the wonderful grants that we can apply for, all the loans, all the all the different things that I think have been mentioned already. But I also wanted to highlight the work of the Office of Small Business. They've been fielding hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and emails every week, trying to get business owners connected with resources and really doing a lot of one-on-one counseling. So I wanted to thank them. And also thanking everybody on the panel, Rodney, your expertise today, and also leading us into the recovery. And Joaquín, I don't know how you do this. You're in every single meeting, on every flyer, and somehow you're in 20 places at once, but thank you very much. So at this point, I just want to move into the questions, if that's okay with everyone here. Okay, great. And just to give everyone some context about the questions today, the vast majority of people who RSVP'd for today's webinar or talk also RSVP'd with a question. So these are a culmination of like questions that have been asked over and over again. So starting with Joaquín, what is the status of the city's grants and funding programs for small businesses impacted by COVID?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So again, as the mayor said, for up-to-date real-time information, please do go to our website, oewd.org. Just click on COVID-19. It'll list all of the resources that are available to you, not only through the city, but what else is complimentary from the state, the federal level, and all the partners that we have on the ground, ready to reach out to you online, connect with you over the phone to guide you through this process and help you navigate this very difficult time. In addition to that, also private resources that are available, newly announced grants that are accessible to you as a small business owner. Please do frequently visit that site. It's where we try to put everything that we have available. We started out with $1 million before we had the shelter in place to support small businesses with grants up to $10,000. Since that time, we have doubled that grant pool so that we could serve over 200 businesses through that effort with grants up to $10,000. We'd also heard that some of those resources were not reaching some of those sole proprietors or businesses in a way that would be useful to them. So as part of this second round of grants that will be going out, we'll be making some adjustments and we'll be publicizing that on our website when it's time. We're gearing up to make our first allocation of a little over 127 grants from that first allocation. And then secondarily, the mayor also introduced the Give to SF fund here in San Francisco so that we could coordinate, Mayor, and thank you so much for the leadership there and coordinating us as a city so that we would have private resources available to support us with a loan program as well, a 0% interest loan program. We have a partner currently that was accepting applications. We've received over 4,000 businesses who've submitted that application. So definitely want to always reinforce that the resources that we have available right now from a city perspective are greatly exceeded by the demand. Which is why it's so important that today, if folks have not been aware, but I'm sure everybody is in the small business community, that the federal SBA program and the new allocation, those applications opened up this morning at 7:30 a.m. Again, go to our website for more information there, where you can learn about additional partners, additional CDFIs, community development financial institutions, who can also help you in getting those applications filled out. Why is that important? Because many banks are only working with their clients and prioritizing them on a first come, first served basis. There is billions of dollars that are being held for other smaller lenders, other smaller banks and CDFIs, and making sure that the public is aware that they are there as a resource for you during this time. But as we know, the resources are limited from a federal perspective, even so. And so please do take the initiative right now. Reach out to our hotlines, as you mentioned, Cynthia. Get real-time information from us in a call for any questions that you may have. You will get a response. You will be able to talk to a person when you reach out to us. So I think I'll leave it with that. As a final piece, the mayor also introduced a neighborhood mini grant program on Friday afternoon. And this was also meant as another fill the gap complimentary resource in some of our most underserved neighborhoods. Given the fact that we do have a financial crisis, we wanted to make sure that we were refining those resources as we had them available and delivering them where they were needed. Again, focusing on those who may not be able to access other resources in other ways, including some of the ones that we did as a city. And then also ensuring that women entrepreneurs from a citywide perspective had access to those grants as well. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Thank you. So many of the fees and fines that small businesses have been experiencing have been deferred now, I think, until September is what you mentioned. Are there long-term plans for small businesses to be able to help navigate those fees beyond that, since many of us were already struggling to pay those before this?
Definitely. Thank you, Cynthia, for the question. That is one of the areas that I'm laser focused on, because the fact is some of the businesses that are being required to close under our ordinance are not generating any revenue. And the fact that we would expect businesses to pay these fees during times that they're not even open and able to generate revenue is not right. So we are working to figure out how we can deal with the fees overall and what it would mean to reduce or to eliminate certain fees for a time period or what have you. We are definitely looking into that because, as you know, what was said by Rodney, what we've seen, we're talking about, you know, somewhere around $49 million. The city is facing a significant budget deficit, but we also can't balance our budget on the backs of businesses that won't be able to reopen if we continue to burden them with even more city fees. So that is something we're definitely focused on. It is something I care about dealing with to try and remove that barrier. But I also want to be clear. I think, first of all, we have so many businesses that are going to be struggling even after we begin to reopen. There are businesses that are having challenges now. They're going to have challenges after this, but then there might be businesses that are okay. And we want to make sure that those businesses that are okay, that they continue to pay what they owe if they can afford to do so, because there's going to be a lot of businesses that can't. So we want to be fair because this impacts all of us. When the city is not able to generate sufficient revenue, then it makes it more difficult for us to provide more resources to those businesses that are struggling the most. And in fact, we mentioned Give to SF, where we are I'm actually raising private dollars to support small. There's only 3 categories in our Give to SF program, and one is food insecurity, one is for housing and to help with people that might be facing eviction. And the most important category here is small businesses and making sure that we have more resources. We need to maximize the amount of resources we're able to provide in order to help carry businesses that need it the most through this pandemic. And so it's definitely something that I'm committed to addressing. And this is where I'm going to count on the business community as I try to propose legislative changes through the process. We're going to need people to be supportive of that, because it is really going to be, it's going to hit our budget hard, but I think the benefits of supporting our small businesses outweigh the need for us to collect these fees from our already suffering businesses.
Great, thank you very much. This question, I think Rodney would be the person to direct this to. Along with the fines and fees, I think one of the things top of mind for small businesses is also commercial rents. So what programs are there, or what types of resources could you help some of our small business owners with to negotiate rent changes, rent relief with their commercial landlords?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a tough one because at the moment, there's not necessarily any relief for landlords. I think it's important to remember in San Francisco, a very old city, that many of our landlords are small business owners too. they have mortgages, they have insurance, they have their own obligations. So while I think though the battle is they want to not have vacancies, I don't know any landlord who wants to have a vacancy. Would be if you're a tenant, small business, you should begin a dialogue with your landlord if possible to see if there's any kind of deferment. But I just stress that to you that they are also under the same kind of pressures with mortgage payments and such. But there are private arrangements, and to begin those kinds of conversations would be very helpful.
Great, thank you. And Mayor Braid, many small business owners have not even heard back from the SBA yet on their loans. Do you have an update on the federal assistance program? Or
Oh, the federal assistance program?
yeah, like the SBA loans and things like that. Have you? I know that this morning there was a new new funding added to that. But do you know anything beyond or how the city can help advocate for some of our business owners who haven't even had a chance to?
Yeah, and Joaquín can provide some insight into that because
Absolutely.
his office is working directly on
Oh, sure.
trying to get access. So Joaquín,
Yeah.
you want to?
No, yeah, absolutely. That's been one of the biggest questions for us in terms of where is accessibility happening. Almost immediately, we were on the phone with financial institutions when we were getting questions across the city about what does this program look like. Everything was rolling out so quickly that everyone, it seemed, was scrambling during that time to understand how even their own lenders that they had a relationship with would provide them guidance or even a response around how to access these funds. What we're monitoring very closely now, both Treasurer Cisneros and Assessor Recorder Carmen Chu had reached out to these financial institutions to ask, how are you communicating with your clients? What is the process by which you're going to be processing applications? What's important to know right now is that based on those conversations, the mayor asked us to make sure that we were submitting those concerns from the general public around those products to the Speaker's office as part of our federal advocacy. That's one of the reasons why we saw this portion of funding that was reserved specifically for smaller lenders so that folks had many outlets and also community-oriented outlets to access those federal relief funds at the same time. So as we see that program roll out today, we'll be monitoring in real time to find out what the responses are like. The silver lining for us that we're seeing right now, but we're still going to be watching closely, is the fact that there are those dollars that are held for smaller institutions, and we can see what relief is provided to the small business owners that take that path as they begin to work with their financial client, the larger banks and the SBA around their own applications. Our understanding from many, but I do encourage every small business owner that has a application to reach out to their lender with just some follow-up questions in terms of what will their process be. We will also be feeding that back information on our website as well. Again, oewd.org with that additional information too. But we're looking forward to monitoring this and seeing how this new version of PPP is going to be administered and what relief it can provide.
Yeah.
Great. And just a follow-up question about the PPP. The loan requires a return to pre-COVID staffing levels by June 30th. How will small businesses reach these levels so that we're eligible to receive those loans when from the federal government?
Yeah, and I will say that one of the reasons why I created the Economic Recovery Task Force is so that when we're able to provide a window of opportunity for a particular industry to open, we want to make sure that before that happens, they know what the requirements are going to be, and so that they can get ready. So on day one, they know what to expect. We have been talking to the speaker about that particular requirement because when you think about it with restaurants, if we're going to be looking at reopening restaurants and changing their capacity, then there's no way that they're going to not only be able to afford to bring back all their employees, but the likelihood that they will even be able to afford their rent and other expenses is going to be really, really challenging. And so I think that part of our goal with the Economic Recovery Task Force is to look at ways and working with the Department of Public Health to provide guidance for these industries to help people to get ready. So on day one, they know what they're going to be able to do but the speaker has been absolutely incredible and is aware that this could potentially be a challenge in light of the need to impose new restrictions on businesses that may make it difficult for them to be able to bring back their employees. The other thing that the Economic Task Force, Recovery Task Force will do is also look at ways to ensure that our workforce adapts to what our new normal is. I mean, we have folks from the academic world who many of our institutions were asking them to look at their classes and what they have available in order to retrain people for maybe a new opportunity that they may not have thought was possible because they're not able to return to their job. And so we're looking at other industries. We're looking at how many contact tracers we're going to need because until a vaccine is found, there is a need to identify when someone has the virus, what happened, who have they been in contact with, not just in their immediate family at home, but others in other parts of the community, along with more testing. This is going to be necessary for us to open and to remain open so that we don't see a significant surge in the number of cases. So it's going to take a major effort to start thinking differently about things won't necessarily go back to the same. But I think that there's an adjustment that we can make if we are prepared to make it. And our economic recovery task force is going to play an important role in helping us do that. And I'm going to continue to advocate, not just the speaker, but our senators as well. We have a great relationship with Kamala Harris, our senator, and others. We have been in constant contact with the big city mayors about adjustments that need to be made because we are going to all be in the same boat.
Thank you. I am going to kind of backtrack a little bit into another, just a question that was asked many times. Many small business owners are reporting seeing an increase in tents and street unsheltered homelessness in commercial corridors and other neighborhoods. What is being done to help those experiencing homelessness who are at a greater risk of contracting coronavirus?
This has been, as I'm sure many people in the city, especially if you own a business, that the challenges of homelessness don't go away because there's a pandemic. In fact, they've been worse for us. And although we've been able to get close to 1,000 people into hotel rooms, the ability to address homelessness in the age of social distancing has been so difficult. And so what you're seeing is we are ramping up our hotels, but we also have to have staff and meals and cleaning and services and management of these hotels to ensure that the staff and the folks who work there are safe, but also the people who are located in those hotel rooms are safe as well. It's a massive undertaking requiring a significant increase in our capacity, and it is really been taxing on our workforce. And when I say our workforce, it's not just people in the city and in nonprofits that work with this population. All city employees are disaster service workers. We've had to retrain either librarians or rec and park staff or other people who were not hired to do these jobs to work with this population in these capacities. We are not going to be able to place our entire homeless population into hotel rooms. But what we're trying to do is get creative around how we're able to provide them help and to find safe locations where we can divert the tents off of the sidewalks, off of the streets into larger areas and larger parking lots. Specifically, we're looking at Everett Middle School as an option, and we're working with Supervisor Mandelman on that. And we're looking at other locations in the Bayview. We have trailers that we receive from the state and that we also purchase that we plan to place at Pier 92 to move people out of tents into those shelters, people who are residents of the Bayview. So we're trying to get creative to try and get as many people off the street as we possibly can. And it has been challenging and will continue to be challenging, but we're going to continue to do the very best that we can. And I cannot, commit to seeing this major change around the removal of tents if we don't have places for people to go. We have to make sure that we have restrooms, wash stations, and other things when we take responsibility for any of the folks that are housed in tents at this time. So we're going to continue to get creative and provide informal locations and work with Department of Public Health and Department of Homelessness to do just that. And I will say, as much as we've been able to do, not only providing meals to our shelters, meals to these hotels, and meals to people who are in tents, and cleaning services and other support, it continues to be a challenge to ramp up to the number of staffing that we would need in order to meet what we see a significant population of homeless people in our city.
So, just to kind of start talking a little bit more, to talk a little bit more about recovery and reopening, what do you think will new standards look like for operating a business in the city? We have different types of needs for different high contact industries, such as restaurants, hair and nail salons, like you had mentioned, dental offices, things like that. What are your thoughts in that so far?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because again, part of our goal with our economic recovery task force with a lot of the different industries, we want to work together to provide those guidelines. So for example, most of what we see happening with the Department of Public Health and the decisions that are being made are centered around what we need to do to protect public health. So it focuses on trying to keep people apart from one another in order to avoid getting the virus. And what we're experiencing with our economy and what we're seeing with the numbers, they have real concerns about opening up too fast, because we still see the number of hospitalizations gone up. We still see every day an increased number in the number of people who are positive for COVID-19. And we've had 23 deaths, over 1,400 cases, and about 85 people who are hospitalized. So they are not comfortable that we are out of the woods, because those numbers continue to rise. They're not, we say flattening the curve, but it's pretty flat relative to most other major cities, but it has not dropped. And what we've done today, for example, in extending the stay-at-home order for an additional month, during that time, our goal is to not sit around and wait until direction is given from the Department of Public Health. We're going to provide the guidance for how we can get back to opening up some of our businesses. So for example, just think about it. The restaurants have delivery and pickup services. We have non-essential businesses that possibly, with the right kinds of guidelines, could potentially be open for the same pickup and delivery services as well. The place where I buy my candles, where they have, all these knickknacks and things that I like to buy, like, why not make sure that those small businesses that serve our communities have the pickup and drop off service? And what we have to do, and what I'm hoping that our economic recovery task force will do with these various industries, are what are some new guidelines for various industries, because what's going to happen, I'm not going to wait around for the Department of Public Health to say, okay, yes, it's okay to open our hair salons and our barbershops. What I want to do is get ready for that and provide to them the suggested guidelines, get them to agree and to allow some of these places to start to reopen. Because that's where we are now. We have to start working on this now. So for example, if we set up guidelines today, that 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now, this is what a beauty salon needs to be doing in order to get open, then they can get prepared for that. And they can start booking appointments and working with their customers if they can only have one person in the shop at a time. And what does that mean? But again, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen, because part of it is contingent upon what happens with our numbers, what happens with the number of people who are infected. And so we are open to suggestions from our business community. If you have a unique business and you don't necessarily interact with the public, but you have items that you sell and you're not online, but there's a way that you could provide pickup and delivery. Like, what does that look like? And I think we got to start having those discussions now so that we can get people ready. If they're going to need to wear gloves and masks when they're doing certain services, we need to get people ready so they have the supplies that they need. And that's a continued conversation that I'm hoping that we will focus this additional month of May on those kinds of solutions. Because when we reopen, it will not be business as usual. Things are going to be a lot different, especially in light of not having a vaccine. There are going to be some challenges with large scale events. There's going to be challenges with nightclubs, with hair and nail salons, but it doesn't mean that we should not look at ways we can reopen and make sure that we're practicing certain techniques or requirements that will help limit the number of people that would be infected.
And this is our last question, maybe for Rodney. How can small businesses and their small business owners be leaders in the recovery efforts?
Yeah, I think the mayor spoke well about creativity and ingenuity, and we want everyone to figure out what they want to do next and how their business is going to shift. I will share that there's one website where there's a public survey put out by the Recovery Task Force. The website is onesanfrancisco.org/COVID-19 recovery. There's an opportunity to share your thoughts. I think we want to have more forums like this and more opportunities for people to give ideas, give structure. And the mayor's right. This next month, we're going to come up and we're going to meet with different sectors, different groups, and hopefully have a playbook. There's not going to be an exact plan that we can march out, but a whole list of plays that we can put into play that she can pull from, that'll have a matrix of what the reward is, what the risk is, what the economic impact is. And as this thing changes, it's very different. In fact, maybe an earthquake recovery would be somewhat easier than this recovery, since we may have some start stops. So we're going to try to provide her with as much information and decision-making opportunities as possible from the public.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to thank everybody for being on this panel today and sharing advice, encouragement, all these things for all of us, because we need it right now. Like to see Mayor Breed, would you like to close us off today?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Commissioner Huie, for your work with this. You mentioned in the beginning that you had a number of people who registered and provided questions. So I want to ask you to make sure that Joaquín gets that list with the questions, and he and his team will respond to those questions to try and do what we can to make sure that we are answering them. You could also email Joaquín or email me at mayorlondonbreed@sfgov.org. So reach out to us anytime. It's better if you reach out to me by email, not on social media, because I'm not allowed to get on social media because my staff, they won't let me do stuff. But the fact is, if you respond to me, mayorlondonbreed@sfgov.org, we'll get back to you as quickly as we can with your questions. Joaquín and his team has been great with providing resources to small businesses. I'm on the phone regularly, not only trying to raise private dollars to support our small businesses, but also trying to redirect funds and figuring out creative ways to support our small business community. I also want to just repeat one of the things I said. As we start to propose policies that can help our small business community, we're going to really need the small business community to rally around those policies, because we know that it's a matter of whether or not you will be able to even reopen as we start to open our doors here in the city again. So it's important that we hear from you, that you, of course, are paying attention to what's happening around the policy discussions, that you're contacting your Board of Supervisors members and making it clear to them what's important to you, because again, I know it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle, and what we want to do is make sure that we are helping to meet the need of people who need help now. And we want to get to people. We want to be supportive as we possibly can. And we know that we are all going through it, whether it's our business or in our personal lives, as all of us are required to stay at home. And so I just really want to express my appreciation to so many people in the city who have just followed the orders and have put us in a situation where our numbers in comparison to other major cities are absolutely remarkable. We're not out of the woods yet. We can't let up just yet, but what we can do is start to look at creative ways to get back on our feet again, to get back to opening businesses or industries with certain guidelines that are approved by a public health department. And that's really where I want to get to. So send us your suggestions, send us your comments, send us your love. No complaints, please, because you can send complaints. I'm just kidding. But send us emails to let us know what we can, what you suggest that we do to help make things better for you, because we really are in this together, and it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of patience to get through it. And we appreciate you all being with us today, and hang in there, and make sure that you do everything you can to bring our businesses back to our city. And I'm going to do everything I can from the mayor's office to support you in doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All right,
much, Mayor
thank you.
Breed.
Thank you.